Okay, so this is the first Saturday night of the winter retreat, and we're just beginning, and Ajahn Yaniko has suggested or put forward using the theme of the protective meditations during this retreat as something to explore, and I think that's a great kind of theme, and how to use the meditations in a way that kind of protects the aspiration, protects the spirit of the practice. Of course, those protective meditations being Buddhanusati, recollection of the Buddha, Metta Bhavana, the meditations on loving kindness, Asubha Kammatthana, the meditations on the unattractive nature of the body, and Maranasati, recollection of death. And these are meditations that are, as I say, protective meditations, in that one is, there's all sorts of different angles to reflect from, but certainly the sense of protecting the kind of aspiration, the spirit of the practice, and that and in considering it like that, of course, many of the reflections, recollections, encouragements that the Buddha gives are aimed at that, and are have a really say the intention, or to how to motivate ourselves in the most skillful way, as they reflect on the first thing that the Buddha encourages us, particularly as monastics, to contemplate the 10 reflections for one who has gone forth. Just that very first one, I'm no longer living according to worldly aims and values. And I think in reflecting in particularly of this being winter retreat, 3 months of an opportunity to direct our attention in a really skillful way, to be lifting that kind of theme up. I'm no longer living according to worldly aims and values, and whether we're monastics or lay people, that is a really important theme to be contemplated, or an aspiration to set for oneself, because the more we chase after the world, just the more frustrated, or the more we take the world as a standard for our, what we measure as worthy or noble, or something that we put a lot of faith or store in. It's a pretty slippery standard, and I'm no longer living according to worldly aims and values. To be able to, and when we think of worldly, part of it is the, those things that are conducive to stimulating more greed, hatred, delusion, stimulating more conflict and difficulty, things that just tend to spin us out. Just not buying into that, and of course, in order to accomplish that, it's one thing to set a goal or an intention, but how do we accomplish that? And of course, that's the Buddha's path is always one that is it doesn't leave you high and dry with some hopeless ideal to aspire to and no tools to get there. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things of the Buddha's teachings, is that the tools are readily available. The ways of practice are very accessible, so that. And of course, as I said, there's many different approaches and whatnot, but this set of teachings as the protective meditations, they're very supportive for helping to balance our relationship to the world. And when I say the world, it's not just sort of the external world. It's that internal world as well. Saying, worldly aims and values are not just, trying to. It's not sort of just societal or external things. It's also the internal things that are worldly. Our internal perception of self, that we're constantly propping up, trying to look good, trying to escape criticism, trying to escape blame, trying to trying to appear confident and competent in the midst of constant change and chaos, and that it's a worldly aim and value, comparing ourselves to others all the time. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's good? Who's bad? These are worldly aims and values, and we torture ourselves with that, so that when we think of the what are the worldly aims and values, don't just sort of blame the external world or shun the external world and the kind of the trappings of it externally, but it's what kind of internal world are we buying into and being caught up in? So and that's that one of the definitions of a say bhikkhu that Ajahn Chah used to emphasize over and over again in terms of a definition, one who is who's turning away from samsara, and that sense of turning away from samsara is not, again, not just the external manifestation of it, but the samsara in its literal sense is the wandering on. And what wanders on more than our minds and our moods and our kind of our proliferating thoughts and judgments. I mean, that just wanders on, keeps wandering on. And of course, again, this is a sense of, well, how do we protect ourselves from our unruly and unreliable minds? So that, Buddha Nusati, recollection of the Buddha, to try to cultivate aspects of faith, of confidence, of something that we can look to as a refuge. And of course, the Buddha is a kind of a stand-in for the whole aspect of refuges of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And the Buddha epitomizing the qualities that are required for awakening, or that embody that principle of awakening, of freedom. So that inclining the heart to confidence and trust. That sense of faith is not just believing in something, but feeling a sense of confidence, of trust in these principles of awakening. So the Buddha Nusati, it's a balancing factor of uplifting the mind in some way, shape, or form. Metta bhavana, the turning of attention to loving kindness, and the that sense of turning to the quality of that allows us to step back from ill will, aversion, irritation. It's the root defilements of greed, hatred, delusion are they display themselves in all of us, and we all have to deal with it in different ways at different times. But so that sense of that root defilement of ill will, that quality that tends to get upset, irritated with, to be agitated because of that sense of I don't like this, shouldn't be this way, and then the ensuing proliferation of negative mental states, and to be able to counter, to balance the mind. In the same way that our minds easily get caught up in doubt and confusion and misunderstanding of things, and so that sense of confidence and trust in a principle of awakening helps to balance that. And the mind that is tends to be irritated, upset, even cynical about things. It's just it's just an underlying, say, aversive tendency, and to be able to balance that tendency with something, and that certainly the quality of loving kindness is the doorway into that. And of course, that say the metta bhavana is the first quality of the Brahma Viharas, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, and these are extremely bright mental states that are conducive to growth in the Dhamma, growth on the path, and metta it tends to be the doorway into these really bright qualities, and so that as a protective meditation, it helps protect us from the negativity and just the suffering involved in the that investing and believing in that ill will, fundamental ill will, and aversive tendencies. And it's not that difficult to find the logic to support negativity. I mean, there's lots to be negative about, but what's the effect of that? Not very. You might be smug in your logic, but it doesn't make you happy, and doesn't make you peaceful. So that understanding, the whole point of the Buddha's teaching is suffering, and the end of suffering, and being able to pay attention to that. What is it that allows us to see through that fundamental dissatisfaction and dis-ease of the mind, so that that loving kindness, and along with the other Brahma Viharas, is a balancing and protective, has that function, being able to use that as a tool, because these are tools to be used, tools to become skillful with. The asubha practices, contemplation of the unattractive nature of the body, is this skillful tool for undermining, well, yeah, just your the basic tendency towards greed, lobha. But greed is in terms of just that desire, seeking gratification, and gratification in a sensory perception, a sensory object, a sensory mood, a sensual mood, a sexual mood. I mean, these are degrees of that stimulation toward gratification, and to be able to just contemplate. Well, what is the basis of that kind of desire process? And of course, the most tangible object of contemplation is the body, and to be able to start to reflect in terms of, well, what is this body like, and well, it's just as a collection of these four elements, collection of the different elements in nature that are have different functions, and they manifest themselves. Hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, different internal organs, fluid nature of the body, different sweat, phlegm, blood. And those are all, it can be parsed out, and it's helpful to parse it out, because we do look at things in terms of, kind of all of a piece, and then view it through the lens of, say, desire. I like it, I want it, isn't that interesting? And then it takes over the mind, but then we're left with just a kind of empty feeling, because it really doesn't uplift or brighten the mind all that much. It might energize it sometimes. Just that, when there's that hope of gratification, the mind gets really, really interested sometimes. But it does that with aversion as well. So you get energized by going on some rant internally about all the wrongs that one has experienced, and all that's wrong with this person or that situation, and we can invest in it, but it doesn't really make us happy. It doesn't make us peaceful. And of course, that's what is much more interesting from the perspective of a spiritual seeker, one who is, sees the danger in the samsara, the round of becoming, that becoming process, that sense of that samsara, of that moving on, because we're always moving on to the next thing, and there isn't a feeling of being settled. And this sense of contemplating the nature of desire, the nature of objects of desire, and objects of desire, the four elements, different parts of that bring together an object, whether it's animate or inanimate, and ourselves. Which are, we're definitely animate because we're alive, but it's helpful to sort of separate it out into the different parts that make up a human body, and then when it's animated through greed, hatred, delusion, particular desire, then we can invest a huge amount of energy into, say, worrying about being gratified, excited about being gratified, sometimes self-satisfied about gratification. But in the end, it just is. It's like Ajahn Chah used to use an idiom. In Thai, it was, and as particularly in the Isan language and the dialect, it was very, very sort of blunt and direct. Cannot, it's just that much. It's only that much. So that's one say as beautiful and attractive as something is, it's just that much. Or as say, even as unattractive and repulsive as something can be, it's just that much. Even as say as good as something can be, this is the best. This is really tops. It's just that much. And I was thinking, this is terrible. This is awful. I can't imagine it could ever been so bad. And it's just that much. It's just being able to see it in its nature, stripped away from the whole desire process, and it just is a really, it's a protective meditation, protective contemplation, and to use the unattractive nature of the body as a means of sort of saying, for all of the kind of the manifestations of desire. In the end, it's just that much, and it comes out of this. It's coming out of this body, or it's trying to get something that this body desires. And of course, there's obviously the mental process around, but it's helpful to sort of see that, bring it back to something simple, bring it back to something tangible. So as a protective meditation, it's really, just really, really fruitful. And of course, the last contemplation of the Maranasati, contemplation of death, that's to a certain degree. It's very similar to that putting a stick in the spoke of the the desire wheel that keeps going on, but it's also a bit more universal in the sense of the seeing that, because it really points to that quality of impermanence, uncertainty, separation. We're always going to be separated from the things that we love, that we're attached to, and including ourselves, this body, this mind, all of the things we conceive of as me and mine, they're subject to this inevitable marnus. Death comes, and to be able to contemplate that, to see it. So there's a real sense of kind of a sobering dispassion and disenchantment, along with kind of, okay, this is, don't waste time, don't fritter away. There's the old Pink Floyd song popped into my mind. Fritter away the hours of the day in offhand way. It's just what we do. So that contemplation of death, maranasati, and it happens all the time. I was just before puja at tea time, I checked the email, and I've got news of somebody who just passed away, and that had Debbie, Dukata's father, Ajahn Krundamo, Ajahn Yani Kongro, Tongyen. He passed away. Of course, Dukata's great. She sends the not many filters there. So they're quite graphic pictures and video of the arc of being a young man through to kind of the being quite ill in hospital, and then packing the body up, and taking the body away. And say, these are realities, and it isn't something that happens to somebody else. It happens to us as well, and especially with somebody like Tongyen is somebody who I've known for a long, long time, since early days of becoming a monk, and then had a lot to do with him as the abbot of Wat Nanachat, and he was incredibly helpful and supportive. And but in the end, there is that separation that happens to all of us. Death is a reality that really needs to be brought into the heart, because who wants to contemplate death? I mean, who wants to contemplate their ultimate demise and the separation from everything? I mean, it's a bit intimidating or scary even, but it's exactly what the Buddha wants us to do, because that gives a certain, when we're willing to look at it directly and closely, you see all of our fundamental fears, and our kind of neurotic fears and neurotic kind of desires and fantasies, in the light of death, they become pretty small, which is really helpful. So this is a protective meditation. It protects us from ourselves and our delusions, and so that this picking up of these meditations, but looking at it as a way of balancing It's not sort of looking for the most perfect technique that's going to get me to enlightenment the fastest. I mean, that's so self-driven with kind of almost a very delusional sense of self. But that's I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values. And even because worldly aims and values, and also we can pick up the spiritual path, in a really worldly way, and it becomes about, me and my meditation, me and my kind of me and my enlightenment. I mean, it becomes absurd, really, because we can get so obsessed, but it's that willing recognizing, again, learning how to protect the mind from the imbalances that tend to plague us, and so doubt and uncertainty, desire and obsession, irritation and negation, or kind of aversion, and just the confusion and the kind of illusion that we have. We've got forever to practice, and the willingness to put off till tomorrow what we need to do today, and then say it's pretty universal, and so that these lifting up these protective meditations and encouraging ourselves, and not torturing ourselves or berating ourselves, but it's more is doing it in this, this is you do as a kindness or an act of protection. The sense of anulakana is to look after, to care for. So caring for one's meditation, caring for one's spiritual practice, caring for one's aspiration for awakening, so that to learn how to care for it really carefully, to be protective, because it really is not everybody who forms an aspiration to seek for peace. It's not everybody who forms an aspiration to try to learn and understand what this human condition is about. And the world is pretty chock full of people willing to commit to delusion and confusion. So that learn how to protect that aspiration, nurture it, care for it. So those are some thoughts for the evening.